Hello again, my name is Jeff Tehan. I'm a quality engineer for the Red Hat CloudForms product. In this demonstration, I'm going to show you how to configure the Azure Active Directory to add an application that will allow you to connect as a provider the Azure instance. I'll show you how to create the app, how to obtain the tenant ID, the client ID, and the client key, and then show you how to implement those within CloudForms itself. So, thank you very much. I hope you find this demonstration useful. Okay, what we're going to do is we're going to start off by going through these steps to add a cloud provider. Currently I don't have any providers, so let's go ahead and choose Add New Cloud Provider. And for the type, we're going to choose Azure. There we go. All right. So we need a name, which can be anything. The region, that's where your resources are currently stored. For my demo, I'm in the West Coast. As you can see, we need a required tenant ID. Optionally, we can need a subscription ID. So you can have more than one subscription with your Azure account. In our group, we have the MSDN account, and then we use endless series of free accounts. So what we're going to do is I'm going to show you how to get all these values out of Azure. The easiest way to get the first two is simply log in to Azure using PowerShell. So make sure you add the Azure RM account because everything we do in ManageIQ is based on the resource manager. So I'm just going to sign in, and the way you know you signed in successfully is it's going to return your tenant ID and your subscription ID. Okay, so this next section is going to reuse some video snippets I had already created for the CloudForms version of this demo. So go ahead and just ignore the CFME part. All the steps are the same and everything takes place from within Azure itself. To get started, we want to log into Azure and click on the Active Directory link. The first item we want to get is the tenant ID. Now, this doesn't actually exist in a field. What you have to do is you have to select the default directory, and then up in the menu bar, right after directory, this is going to be the tenant ID. So copy this value down into a notepad or on a piece of paper. That's the only place you're going to find your tenant ID. From default directory, go ahead and click on the applications choice, and then select Add at the bottom. We're going to add an application that our organization is developing. I'm not going to keep this one, so don't worry about copying these numbers down. We'll just call this CFME demo. We are using a web app because we do use the REST API to communicate. Now, these URLs, these are kind of goofy. You have to have something here, but it doesn't really matter what it says. So you need a domain for the sign-on URL, and then you need a URI, which is basically the domain minus the .com part. So make sure you don't add the .com or it'll kick it back. This is going to create our app. It generally adds the first user by default, but you can select any user and add them into it. Now we want to configure the application. It's pretty straightforward here. Just follow along with what I'm showing you. Here's the client ID, so that's the second value we need. That value is static there. The client keys we have to generate. Now, be very careful here because once you save this, it's going to show you the key. And if you don't write that value down, you won't be able to get it back. So I'm going to save this. Take just a second here. And when we come back, there's your key. You have to copy it down before you leave this page. Now you can always just delete the key and generate a new one, but then you'll have to reconfigure the CloudForms as well. So there's your tenant ID, your client ID, and your key. And finally, we want to click on the Add Application button at the bottom. We do need to give permission to the service manager to use this app. So the bottom one is there. Click the plus, check it, and then you need to actually delegate the permissions. So drop that down, check the box, and click Save. And that's all we need to do in Active Directory. The rest is done back in the original portal. So I'm going to navigate back to the portal. This is the new portal.azure.com, and I'm going to show you how to add the role without actually having to use PowerShell. So what you want to do is you want to select your resource group. All my stuff is based on CFMEQE. The rest of those are minor. So you select the resource group, and then there's a little access button. It's not 100% clear until you see it for the first time. What we're going to do is we're going to add a new user role. You want to select contributor, and then you want to search for the application you created. It's not actually a user. It's going to be the CFME demo app that we created on the Active Directory screen. And that's it. Now we have read and write access to this resource group from our outside app, in this case CloudForms. So that's for the resource group. You can also perform the exact same steps on a subscription. So what we're going to do is select my subscription here, click the access button again, and we're going to add a user, and that user is still a contributor. And we're going to search for the same Active Directory app, CFME demo. So now we have that role and user assigned globally. So any resource groups we create on the fly, they're going to automatically be configured to work with CloudForms. The last thing we need to do is go paste all these values into CloudForms. I'm going to set it up here. Here's the values. And I'll just verify that it actually connects okay. And voila. That's all you need to do to set up the app for CloudForms. So that concludes this demo, and thank you very much for your time. I hope you found it useful.